Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jerry Scullion, and today I'm joined by Sheng-Hung Lee, where we explore a variety of crucial topics at the intersection of design and academia. Our conversation delves into the myriad of challenges that designers face throughout their careers, especially as they navigate changes through the team dynamics and evolving role of AI in the design process. We discuss the critical role of empathy and understanding in crafting meaningful design, as well as significant impact on ageism within the industry. We emphasise the importance of organisations recognising and valuing the wisdom and experience that older designers really bring to the table. Throughout our talk, Sheng-Hung and I highlight the necessity for continuous learning, growth and adaptability in design. And we also touch on the specific challenges facing designers in their mid-40s and 50s, particularly around securing job opportunities. We explore the concept of the 5% rule, advocating for designers to dedicate a portion of their time to personal projects and growth, fostering a culture of mentorship within organisations, and the need to shift our mindset from designing for retirement to designing for longevity. Sheng-Hung shares his insights from his work on ageing and design, underscoring the importance of viewing design as a tool for enhancing life beyond merely beautifying objects. Join us as we unpack these complex issues and more, aiming to foster a deeper understanding and better practices within the design community. Let's get started.
Hi.
It's Sheng-Hung Lee.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm okay. Just back from a short break in Europe, so I'm feeling really tired.
What time is it now? It's like...
No, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. What time is it with you?
Like 9:30. Yes.
Very cool. Let me just check my notes here. How are you doing anyway? Am I getting your name right? Sheng-Hung?
Yes, perfect. You're like Gary?
Jerry.
Jerry.
As in Ben and Jerry, ice cream. Jerry Maguire, Jerry Springer. Yeah. Good to meet you anyway. Where are you? Are you in New York? You're in MIT, aren't you?
Yes, I'm based in Boston, and then this week, so end of semester, last week at MIT. So everyone's like crazy with the final exam. I'm T at the one class, and people drive me nuts. You know, all these kids.
Yeah.
Can we have an extension? I mean, it's last week.
Yeah. So, which course are you working on MIT?
The course name is called Aging and Built Environment. So it's pretty cool. All the graduate students that work on sort of like a real sponsor like project. So like focus on caregiving, focus on product design or service innovation, like fitness, healthcare related, and people are exciting. But the difficulties is like it's too short, and also how do you really understand people? You have to put empathy, you put your heart in the project, and not just like you got a secondhand like desktop research and you say you know it. No, you have to really, really read people, understand them, talk to them, interview them. Yeah.
You're an industrial designer, though, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, same as myself. The Industrial Design Show. Welcome to the Industrial Design Show, folks. Today we're going to be talking about how we've destroyed the planet.
I love that. It's so true. We create more problems.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to create more plastic. Yeah. So, are you originally from China, or are you originally? Am I got that completely wrong?
No, I'm originally from Taiwan.
Taiwan. Okay.
Yeah, Taipei actually, and then after that, I just work a little bit. I studied for too long because I kind of study industrial design and electrical engineering. So it's like 7 years. My parents thought I have some mental problems. Like, you studied as a doctor, medical doctor? No, you're just designer. What happened to you? I said, Mom, I want to study very solid. I'm not aiming for got a certificate. You know, I'm aiming for really learn the knowledge, enjoy myself. It turns out too long. That's the longest time you can stay at university for undergrads. And then, like, especially, like design as an application science, right? Like, it's not just about oh, like let's like understand the framework, draw a beautiful diagram, nothing. Just learn from failure, and then luckily join IDEO
Yeah,
afterwards.
I was going to say, because forgive me for saying that you were from China when you're from Taiwan, but and then because I remember seeing you were in IDEO China, so that's where I originally thought that you were born in China. Um, so you were in IDEO then for a bunch of years, and how long are you in MIT now?
My God, this is my 5th year,
Okay,
and it's like 3 years master and now the second year PhD, and hopefully I can graduate by the end of this year, finding the job. Oh my God, the
so
job
are
is
you studying or are you teaching in MIT?
both.
Right.
So it's more like everyone's, oh, why are you back to study? Like, I'm not studying. MIT is my client. MIT is
Yeah.
my client. I'm working for them. They pay my stipend. I have to work for the lab and contribute as a troublemaker.
Yeah. So you, at the end of it, what are you going to be, a professor?
No, aiming for looking at for professorship for sure, but it depends on how. Now it's very competitive. I'm interviewing at school like Harvard, Yale, and Parsons. But for design academia, it's very different compared with like engineering and science.
Yeah.
It's like they call like professor of practice. It's like, yeah, we value you, but there's no tenure track, and we focus more on teaching. So like Parsons, RISD, all MFA program, they focus on teaching. And I feel like for me, it's the same. Like my PhD program is very different compared with other people. So I'm
Sure.
also now looking for a traditional academia path.
Do you know Tony Dunn in there in MIT?
Tony,
Anthony Dunn,
no.
Anthony Dunn, Fiona Raby.
No, do you know which department he's?
Um,
Maybe I can.
Anthony, Anthony Dunn, MIT, or maybe he's at Parsons. No, he is at Parsons. He is the professor of design and social inquiry at the New School Parsons in New York.
Mm, I didn't
You,
know. I didn't know him. Yeah,
you should
just
check him out.
I should check. Tony, right? Tony Tom.
Well, Anthony Dunn.
Anthony Tom.
He won't know me as a designer. He will know me as his sister's friend. Okay, right. So I mentioned him on the podcast a few times, but he is like a god in design. Sheng-Hung. Basically, when I did industrial design and I did my thesis, and I wasn't a great student, believe it or not. I was like, I quickly saw beyond the veil in second year, and I was like, I don't want to create a load of plastic. I was kind of a little bit more advanced, and I was like, hey, let's talk about the earth. This can't be good. Like, I like gardening, like, and we're putting pesticides in the soil. Where's all this stuff going to go? Like, this is in the 90s. So my lecturers were like, who is this kid? So, but I did my fourth year, I did it on robotics and sort of for people who are visually impaired and robotic aided kind of sight. Okay, so this device that would follow them around and tell them what's in their environment and so forth. And my friend said, hey, you should speak to my brother. He's in the RCA. And I was like, okay, yeah, I remember you saying that to me. What does he do? Like, oh no, he worked for Sony and he worked on the Walkman and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I actually did my thesis on the Walkman and he helped me. And then it wasn't until a few years later that I realized that all of the lecturers in my university in Dublin were like, no, he's like the forefather of speculative design. So
Wow.
speculative was Tony Dunn, like, out of RCA, and Fiona Raby, his partner. And he's included in a lot of the Dieter Rams thinking of kind of, and Johnny Ive, he taught all of those. And so he's really, I can't say enough words. I read his books. It's just amazing. Like, but anyway, he won't know me as a designer. So his sister, so everyone goes, Tony. And I go, well, I called into him a few times in the RCA and we high-fived because that was about it, like, But it turns out he's a megastar, like in the whole kind of the world of, Gary Hustwit. Gary Hustwit from Helvetica. He's on all those documentaries.
Mm.
But anyway, he's in your same neck of the woods. He's a professor. He's in Parsons, which is across the water, and could be someone for you to connect with and network. I don't have his email anymore because he left the RCA a
Oh,
number
okay.
of years ago to go to Parsons, but he basically ran the one of the key courses. I can't remember. I think it was interactive, like
Mm.
interaction design or something in the RCA, and they're not doing it anymore because Tony left.
Yeah.
That's the last I heard. But anyway, he might be a good person for you to connect with. But that's just how small this community is.
It's true. It's very
Not,
small because everyone knows everyone, and it's like,
yeah.
especially in academia, right? Yeah, I think same for industry. Like, oh,
He's an industrial designer as well. So he did my course in the 80s. I did it in the 90s. So there's a kind of a re-emergence. A lot of people I'm connecting with now are industrial designers. They're reformed. I say I'm a reformed industrial designer. But your name came up anyway because I don't know if I gave you the preface, but Adam Cochran had mentioned you to me because so I run this thing called the Human Centered Design Network, and we've been doing this podcast for about 8 years. And we have a new community that started about 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago. And the first theme came out of the first campfire, which was a bunch of people who are relatively kind of, I would say, they're probably in their 50s, have all been made redundant. And we're all facing this kind of situation of, I work for myself, I'm independent, I'm lucky enough, I've kind of built a system where I can get work. But where have all the old designers gone?
mm.
And we sort of sell this nirvana, this dream of being a designer, and it's so cool. You can change the world. You can change the world until you turn 40, and then you might have to start looking for another job. So, like, I train all these designers in Accenture and governments and stuff. I haven't trained a designer over the age of 35 in 5 years.
Mm.
Right?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit more around, because Adam was like, hey, Sheng-Hung is into this stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, well, it's not like so much to poke holes in the balloon. It's more to understand how we can keep the balloon afloat and
Mm.
what are the problems, because people might, say that they're, into D&I and we do our best efforts. But when suddenly you're faced with it in your own lap in your 40s, and I haven't really had to face it too much, this is going to face everybody. Unless you're in academia where there tends to be, you can go longer. But if you're working in some of these institutions like banks or, tech companies, fast tech, you've got a shelf life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel the same because actually last night I was writing an article about AI in design, and I really feel like traditionally we all know like classic like double diamond model, right? Converge, diverge by design console from UK, and then yeah, like we need to with design process like converge, diverge all the time. It's an iterative process for sure.
Yeah.
Now with the help of AI, oh my god, think about the diamond becomes super big. The first diamond.
Yeah.
You keep going, right? Like you have tons of idea, hyper sketch, like ChatGPT, DALL-E's, right? Everyone can bring any kind of crazy ideas within a second by
Yeah.
prompt, or even just by your moon, for example. And then somehow, what does it mean for double diamond? Which means like, what does it mean for design process, right? We can have thousands of idea, but what I really want to say and emphasize is like, does anyone know what is mean by good taste? Do you know what I mean by good lifestyle, healthy lifestyle? It doesn't mean the more the better, right? The more like you goes like this crazy a lot, but how do you like, converge? How do you synthesize? Did anyone tell that how to synthesize, right? And then that's
Yeah.
really based on our life experiences, work experiences, and personal experiences, empathy. And I feel, oh wow, that's everyone think they know AI tools, they become designers.
Yeah. There's a little, I would say a little, there's a huge risk in that. And how do we stop the people in the organizations getting fat on the sugar drinks of AI. Like, that's, because they can go in completely the wrong direction. They can go in many directions at the same time. But it seems to be that there's a lack of sort of custodianship of
Yeah.
the craft happening in organizations. And that's something that I'm seeing more and more, that, well, like, I guess I'd love to understand your perspective of, like, where is this coming from? Like, it can't just be pinpointed at on AI. Say, no, AI is the piece. Before that, even, there seems to be this kind of point where a designer hits in their 40s.
Mhm.
And I don't mean to say the 40s is the golden age of being made redundant or any of that kind of stuff. But some organizations look at 40-year-old designers. If you're not a manager, or if you're not leading a team, and if you are happy to be a craftsperson working in design, like, it could be within user experience or service design or interaction design, there's something wrong. They're saying there's something wrong with this person because they're not happy to take the step up to become, a team leader or a person leader, which is a different skill. Not everyone has that skill. So, what other things do you think is happening there within the organization to cause this kind of questioning of a designer's age?
No, I think this is great because when I work in IDEO, most of friends they left the company and they have their own. For example, they become leaders in the organization. Like my
Mm,
friend G, we just met last week. He left IDEO and joined the tech accelerator called Hacks, HAX,
yeah,
and he's like from engineer become partner, and then like I like you say, like, oh, you start to think about yourself. Now you manage people,
yeah,
right? So you're responsible for work. Now you manage the people who are responsible for the work. And
yeah,
I feel like that, like, leadership role that ties to a lot of things, right? And then I feel like, especially now, everyone lives longer. We talk about longevity all the time. We talk about
mm,
like because the now people, like new kids born, they can live more than 100 years old, right? And what does it mean for our career, especially for designer? We talk about designer, right? And then I feel like, yeah, we try to promote design, the value of design, the design tool become more accessible. But that also push us to think, what are the core design skill or like knowledge, right? It's just a
yeah,
hardcore skill. Like we go to school, yeah, give me like 5 days on YouTube. I can learn almost everything.
yeah,
Coding, the Adobe and everything. But what about communication, leadership, creativity, team building? And these are things like I feel like you said is shaped by organization culture. It's invisible, it's soft skill, it's a human skill. And then
mm,
people in their, I won't say like a middle life crisis, it's like in the stage of the like age 40s, 50s, right? And how do you change the way a contribution of design somehow is transformed?
yeah,
It's no longer about I solve the problem. I
yeah,
feels like, can you create a condition to let more people to join that platform and solve the problem with you? And I feel that's something I really interesting to know more. Also for me, 37, 36, I also want to know, what does it mean to me?
mm,
Do I have the chance to practice to create that condition to
yeah,
help new people to thrive versus I only help myself to thrive? It's very different mindset, I think.
yeah. I mean, in some cultures, they see the elderly as being places of wisdom and, knowledge and experience, and then others less so. So when you look at Japan and stuff, there's a lot more, kind of inclusion around how they engage with the elderly and the access to the past and so forth, so they can actually learn and bring that experience into the situation. This is just in life. I don't know what it's like within design, but it seems within design, especially within fast tech, where, I think the average age of an Amazon, Google, Facebook, include any other fast tech company in there, is 29. So when you look at that from a designer's perspective, where are all these people going? What happens to the 40-year-old UX designers who don't want to get into the managerial positions? They either leave and they set up their own business and they go freelance, or they kind of change careers. They get into other disciplines that they might want to kind of explore further. But I'd love to understand your experience, because you've got so many. I look at your LinkedIn and I'm just like, this person is so busy. You just sit there. You are like, I encourage anyone listening to this podcast to check out Sheng-Hung's LinkedIn and just try and hold your bottom jaw in place, because it's just incredible the amount of stuff you've done in your career. But what would, in your experience, what would a great all-rounded design team look like, from that perspective of creating great work?
Yeah, I really appreciate you asked the question, because for me, like, design team looks, especially now, I think post COVID, or like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of new norms, right? Like, people have more flexibility, work from home, and then location becomes something less impactful. Like, how do you like form a team? Like, IDEO, they call like the designer on the cloud, right? Cloud team. There's no specific location. Like, it's like, oh, we need to solve the challenge. Like, all the people on the cloud can aim for that. And then for me, I feel like a well-rounded design team is like, definitely, we all know this, like, very cliche, like teamwork, transportation, communication. But I think what's more important is like people know their purpose. They want to grow. They want to aim for something challenge. They want to keep themselves. They have the growth mindset. And
Yeah.
I feel, for me, like, I'm really lucky, really appreciate like MIT Age Lab, Ideation Lab, really support my research. But at the same time, I feel too comfortable. I don't like that. I feel like, yeah, I help the advisor, all the student, like undergrad students, about the class, about the homework, focus on my own study. But I also feel like I want to do more. I want to try something people never tried before. I
Yeah.
need some like 5% space. And I feel, for me, the well-rounded design is not hiring people only focused on work they got assigned. They also think about how they expand. And I think that's very beautiful, because you need have some adventure, you need some pioneer. Otherwise, everything happens so fast. For me, it's overwhelming to see what happened after AI, post AI generation. The
Yeah.
way they think about the world is so different. Like, nothing we need to remember. Everything is like, it's all there, right? And how do you curate? And
Yeah.
I feel, oh my God, it's totally disrupted my education training, the way I understanding design. And I already feel slow. Even I'm at school, I feel very slow. People use the Oculus Vision Pro. Do I know how to coding? Do I know how to communicate with them? Do I know how to set up my avatar? My advisor, my committee, Professor Olive Dweck, he joined my catch-up meeting with HoloLens, with the Oculus, with the avatar. I cannot see his facial expression, just the cartoon characters. And I was, oh my God, it's in this area now. How can I grow faster to know the next step?
It's hilarious. In the last episode that I recorded before I went on a break there for a week, and the person called Jerry Michalski, and Jerry Michalski is in the US. Don't know if you ever heard of Jerry, but he has been documenting his brain for the last 27 years. So his brain is fully public, and his thoughts are out there as well. So the ability for him, so we can already kind of jump ahead 27 years if you want, with a use case of one, saying, hey, look, how are you using this? He says, well, it's, Tiago Forte has been talking about the second brain. I've been kind of doing this for a long time. He said, like, and he said, like, sometimes I look into my brain online and I'm like, hey, I've already thought about this. I've already encountered this stuff before. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like as regards the next generation of designers, should I say, with this pure reliance on AI and everything is just stored and everything is just there for them. But going back to that question around forming teams, I'd love to understand your perspective of, there's D&I requirements in most of these large organizations, but it seems that designers who are older aren't getting the same credence as, say, minorities, race, any of these things, where it's equally as important. You can't have a team full of 25-year-olds and expecting them to create world-class experiences and services that are inclusive. It's just impossible.
Yeah. No, I really think about forming teams, or the ideas of teamwork is all collective decision making, because like now the design challenges is no longer just make things beautiful, forms, shape. It's like it's very complicated. It's systematic. For example, we talk about this like, oh, climate change, right? It's a lot of things, like a lot of, and then for me, we also need to think about the definition of designer or design team, right? I feel like everyone is designer in their own domain of knowledge. And the thing is like, yeah, one of my superpower or your superpower as an industrial designer, we bring tangibility during the design process. But can we open our like a mind, or be more like embrace all this possibility to talk with other people and show the tangible stuff as a way to unlock more potential conversation? And I really view like other people as also designers. For example, in Age Lab, 29 scientists. They're from like mechanical engineering, data scientist, social worker. So for me, I'm the only designer on the team, but also the only troublemaker. I'm sorry, I spent too much money on this. I didn't know we have this policy about I can't bring people in the lab for this section. But the thing I want to say is like, designer or design team, we need to have people as a catalyst, as a bridge to connect that. And I feel my greatest superpower is I connect people through prototyping, through testing. You can see the lab space is like, it's very clean from data scientists, but you see another side, it's my space. Overwhelming. So you can see like the personality, right? And then I feel like I'm very lucky because I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for forgiveness. Oh, do it. Let's like connect the dots first. And people I cannot tell. I have to show them. And then show them first. And then I realized, oh, the best design team is like people create that space for you. You can make mistake, and you should. I love that because my PhD is the best example. It's like I got acceptance from MIT mechanical engineering department, but I feel like, oh, this is really not my thing. I still love design. I love creativity. So as the dean, as the chair, I really think I can graduate from this program. It's a little bit too hard for me. There's a qualifying exam, and I'm trying to know myself more. I know myself pretty well. So they suggest me, oh, you should create your own PhD program. And I said, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? I mean, and I told people, my colleagues in the lab, nobody believes in me because there's nothing written on the website. So what I mean by that is like, yeah, this is a new path. You have to craft your own new path. And I feel design teams should have that momentum to allow people to make mistakes, to try something new. And I feel like you said, team formation, design leadership, and we need some people like that to connect the dots, the bridge. And also we need enlightened leaders with the vision. They know they probably don't know everything. I don't think leaders should know everything. They know something there, but we can prototyping to try it out, test it.
Yeah. Where do you think designers or organizations, like what are the precursors that are happening to designers? You mentioned there about being comfortable. You're too comfortable. You said like you should have this 5% for growth, and I love that. Is that a case for designers who are maybe staying in the same position for too long? What does that look like And do you think that's one of the precursors for designers finding themselves in situations where they are mid 40s, early 50s, and they're kind of missing out on these opportunities? Is that comfortability one of the reasons why why they may be finding it difficult to find roles?
Yeah, this is a great question. I really think about, first of all, I don't think like the job description is fixed.
Hmm.
Because we as a designer, we really tend to kind of as a problem solver. We want to
Yeah.
solve other people's problems. But the truth is like, yeah, people gave us brief, design challenges, design brief, the scope of the project. But how do you design for yourself? And I feel like people, like, for example, in the middle of their age, we got a lot of experiences and we got a lot of like, we're learning from our mistake, our failure. But at the same time, in that job, can you really challenge about your position? Can you do more than that? I mean, what I mean by that is like, design for yourself means like, can you put yourself in the strategic level to think about it?
Yeah.
What are you going to grow next 5 years, next 3 years? Versus like you waiting for people assign you a design task or design like a brief. And I feel the mindset is different because designer, we talk. I think sometimes we overemphasize listening to consumers, listen to users or client. Sometimes we
Yeah.
do pull back. Think about, how about listen to yourself? Do you invest yourself? Yeah, but this is really good questions.
Yeah. I'm thinking as you're speaking there, like, this whole kind of 5% thing where designers are expected to knock it out of the park 9 to 5, and then all of a sudden they're expected to create this 5% where they're could be doing a hustle, they could be doing something that's external. Um, I love that. I mean, like, that is kind of part of my DNA. Like, I've always taken on probably too much, but when you look at other disciplines, say like in finance or in marketing or in engineering, they may not have that 5% thing, and yet they're able to sustain and get into their 50s and get the gold watch when they're retiring and say, thanks very much for your service at 60. What is it about the design role that organizations seem to have that expectation that that 5% should persist?
Yeah, I feel, for me, like, I think like, because for me, we all love design. I definitely believe that people listen to this podcast all love design, and I feel like we love design. We love something. We're looking for not a sense of achievement. We're looking for a sense of fulfillment, right? And
Mm.
I feel like that 5% stuff is more than just achievement. It's a fulfillment. What do you mean by fulfillment? It's like when you do something, you totally forget about time.
Flow.
Oh, this is like 5 hours already. I forgot to have lunch with some friends, but you really enjoy. You involve yourself you immerse yourself in that work or that kind of project. And I feel in organization, like we always want to like think about scalability, efficiency,
Mm.
right? Can we really like show out the business revenue and show us the number rather than tell a story? But I feel like in order to make the organization growth or design culture growth or more sustainable, you have to have that 5% stuff. What I
Okay.
mean by that is like it's more than just revenue. Yeah, it's about sustainable longevity. And I don't think most organizations have that or they think about that because that's really take a long-term vision and goal to
Mm.
achieve that. You have the great foundation first.
Is 5% enough to get that, do you think?
I I feel like everyone in different stages, 5%, it could be like MVP version, the minimum,
Mm.
right? Oh yeah, I'm not saying like we should drop our like day-to-day job, just focus on our passion project and then no income, love
Yeah.
and bread, right? So like I feel like 5% is a great starting point. And probably because that 5% thing, you come up with another business line
Yeah.
and you will start to figure out how do you sustain that 5%, become 50%, and that's
Yeah.
a separate line. And then within that new initiative, you have another 5% comes out.
Yeah.
So I feel that's kind of the ideas I have.
Jessica Hish, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and literally I see Steph, who's the producer of the show, has just dropped that episode now. They had a really great quote. Um, must be about a decade ago, where they're saying the stuff that you're procrastinating about, or daydreaming about, is the stuff that you probably should be working on. So I've probably absolutely destroyed that quote, but you get my point. You get my point. The stuff that we think about getting, oh, that could be something I'd like to do. Like, we never get around to doing it. I'm with you on that, but I know there's going to be people listening to this show and driving along with their fists in the air saying, screw you, I'm working all the hours that God sends, and I've got 2 kids who are screaming, and now you're telling me just when I get that 20 minutes where I can scroll on Instagram, you're telling me that I should open up my laptop and start a Shopify? Give me this guy's LinkedIn. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. And his link is, by the way, his link to his LinkedIn is in the show notes, folks. Only joking. But I'm kind of really interested to go back to that point, though, where marketing and engineering aren't required to do those 5% pieces. And the problem that we're talking about here is designers are finding themselves in this situation in their 40s and 50s, and they cannot get jobs. So the bit that I want to keep on coming back to is, understanding that problem. I'm struggling. Like, there's no problem finding people who are going through the process, but any of the businesses that I've spoken to and I've picked up the phone to, and I have, they kind of say, no, we've got designers in here. Like, they ignore the problem. It's like it doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, how many designers do you have in your design team? They're over the 35. You can't get away from that fact. So there's two ways of looking at this. And tell me, feed into this as well. This is not set in stone. This has been created with a very, very technical document, an implementation tool that has been written on paper on my notes here. Okay. So there's 2 sides to this problem. There's the organizational side and there's the designer side. So far in this conversation, we've covered off that there's potentially a requirement there from a designer's perspective to have this 5% piece where they're not comfortable, they're exploring, they're growing. It's the bit where they get the fulfillment, the ikigai, so to speak. And then is the organization side. Like, where is this tension? Why is this happening? Okay, so one of the main pieces is the hiring process. So the hiring processes that people are being put into now, there's AI, and there's potentially opportunities or problems, depending on how you look at it, that AI is filtering out people because they're too experienced, and organizations don't want them because they're too experienced. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel, yeah, that's really good, because really resonate with the experiment I did like 2 days ago, and the guy talked about in the IT world, right? And then the organization, they love hiring younger people
Yeah,
because they're learning faster, and they could work like without any benefit. They want to have a job. It's their first job probably. For people over like 40 or 35, they have got a lot of certificate. What they
yeah,
have is they have experience, and they have a lot of troubleshooting experiences. And then how do we value this, right? We're like willing to pay 2 young people versus like 1 senior people. They have experiences. What does that mean for us? Like, we're looking for the skill or looking for stories. So I personally feel like, yeah, it's also a little bit like ageism issue, right? Yeah,
yeah,
you're old, and I'm going to replace you because you're too expensive for us. And now, like you said, even harder, we have AI tools, AI
yeah.
empowered tools. Everyone almost can quickly navigate, and they kind of have extra extension of themselves to do this,
Mm,
like a problem solving skill. I do feel like something you cannot change is culture. It's culture.
yeah,
The reason I say that, yeah, you can hire all young talents in the company, but you cannot change is like the culture. What kind of culture you want to aiming for? You want to create or last, right? And the culture means people. So for me,
mm,
design business is a people business for sure. And then you have to think about who's going to pass or curate that, or guiding that culture piece. I really, when I work at Ideal is like around like 20s 18 17, sorry, 2018 to like 2020 19, something like that. And I feel like what I learned the most is the culture in the company, and we need the senior people to guide us to that culture, and that's irreplaceable. You cannot find young people doing that. The term, the language, the pace, mortality, and do you have mentorship, right?
Mm,
And I think the question back to us: can you quantify mentorship? Can you quantify culture? Yeah, and you want to
yeah.
make design or design culture more transactional, or it's more conversational? And I feel that's the thing is really really important, and most people overlook because we we tend to believe numbers, we tend to quantify everything, but we totally forgot something you cannot quantify. It's people, it's culture, and it's mentorship.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a trust.
yeah. In the scenario of the designer who's been prolific and busy and successful over the last 20 years, and they find themselves in the situation without a job and they're 50, and they're based in New York or based in Los Angeles or based in London, and they ring you up and they say, "Hey, listen, look, you're doing some interesting things. Can you give me some advice what I should be doing to try and get a job?" What do you say to them?
I feel I feel when people ask the question to find a job, they already view they already view themselves as a to people to finish the task. Yeah, and I think that I will definitely suggest, like, think about, yeah, the job is important. Think about what are the other offerings, and you can initiate by yourself. You can invest yourself. Because I also feel like one of the examples I want to share is that when I work with MIT Office of Sustainability,
Mm,
MITOS, and then the director really kind. She allows me to write my own job description. And then I realized, yeah, but sometimes part of the job is like, okay, I make things beautiful. But I feel that's not my job. I really honest to say my job for this position is really celebrate people's story.
yeah.
So what I'm doing that, right? I'm not like, I still fulfill the job requirement. I do the meeting, I support the report, I do the field trip, but in the end, what provide them is like I shoot them a small documentary.
Mm,
The task is about how do we create a sustainable carbon neutrality makerspace or labs in MIT. We have more than about 200 labs or makerspaces at MIT. So carbon neutrality is important. How do you save more material flow, like waste, to make sure we have better, cleaner future? And then I shoot a documentary. Before that, nobody understand, what are you talking about? What do you mean by celebrating people's story? It's so vague. And then one of the vice president at MIT and also all the director look at the presentation. Some people like bawling. Oh my god, we get the point. Like, like simple stuff. Use like a coffee cup. Is it for recycle or for trash? It's for trash because it got stained, right? You have to
yeah.
clean it up or go to recycle. And then people's behavior. And then what I really want to say from the example is like, in order to ask for a job, you should think about yourself as department to operate, to think about what are the offering or impact you can offer people. But that is not happen when you lose your job or when you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm in 50. I have to think about that. No, it's a gradual movement. It's not like let's make things happen tomorrow. No, you have to build your connection, your own brand identity. Like, I love this podcast because it kind of, this is kind of like, it's more than a job for you. I think it's like career. It's your baby, right?
Yeah.
And for me, what's your brainchild, and how can you offer to people out different world, and they want to work with you versus that you're asking for a job.
Yeah. It's the push pull mentality. Um, I know, like from speaking to a lot of designers in the community, that they are looking for jobs, and when you're in that situation, it's very difficult to give an awful lot of time to say things that may seem like they're not going to instantly gratify you and get you a paying opportunity straight away. Like, and it's really frustrating for a lot of these designers. And they just keep on shaking their heads saying, we don't know why this is happening. There seems to be a theme and a trend that's happened over the last 18 months where a lot of really, really skillful designers and reputable designers out there that some people know about are kind of just looking around for work. There just seems to be this gap in the market. So just going back to this, your work at MIT, okay, because you keep on alluding to your course that you got to create yourself your PhD. It sounds like nirvana. It sounds like you've just created. It sounds like you've created this kind of space in the corner of MIT, and you're like, yeah, it's I'm the dean of this course, and it's got an admission of 1, and the check-in time is 10 o'clock, and the checkout time is 10:05. So tell us about your work as regards ageism, because I know you have a lot of commonalities, and there's a lot of interesting intersections. Tell us about what the kind of stuff that you're working on right now.
Yeah, I think before I respond to that, I want to quickly add one small point to build on the previous questions. And
Yeah.
I feel like I respond like it's very idealistic, ideally. And I feel the real pain point, the problem is like our society, how they view design, how they view us. Is it like we just make things beautifully, or we're like a visual animals, just view things and make it sexy looking? No, it's more than that. Design is a strategy, it's a way of thinking, it's philosophy.
Yeah.
And then our society willing for that? Are they willing to paying for that? I think
Yeah.
that's really a question mark. And I feel like people in their mid 40s, 50s, like very skillful, like you say, a lot of experiences. And how do we leverage that? How do we create a safe space for them? People
Yeah.
as artists, they work for the entire life, and in the end, they cannot retire because there's no supporting system for their retirement, right? There's no
Yeah.
pension. And how do we celebrate that? We love arts. Art is like human universal language. I think same
Yeah.
for design. How do we have that like safety net to support? I don't think is there yet. Yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of, I feel like, yeah, it's idealistic, but in reality, our societies, are they ready for that? And that creates like a lot of organizations have the bias on design.
Mm. There's definitely something in what you said, even though, as you pointed out, it may be being perceived as being idealistic, but around your personal brand and your purpose. I mean, you look at 1,000 portfolios, I'm convinced 950 of them will literally be just saying, this is what you do. The really, really, really great ones tell us why you're doing it. Tell us a little bit about what makes you stay awake at night, and what are the problems you're trying to fix, and what is your potential, your own human potential to try and make things better. That is what separates those 50 of those 1,000 in my mind that I can point at and say, great portfolio. And
Yeah.
it's really about thinking differently and doing something different to try and catch the attention, I think. It sounds like we've trivialized it a little bit too much, but I know it's a huge problem. We're not going to cover it off in this one, but it's definitely a theme that I've been kind of focusing on for the last number of weeks. Sheng-Hung, tell us a little bit more around this course, because if anyone is in the area of New York, is it a course that people can sign up to? Or is it a case of like it's a course created to function your furthering PhD?
It's a course. It's a graduate course, and people can cross register, and we're definitely open for a listener. And me and my boss, Dr. Joe Coughlin, and we both worked this together at this course, and we try to definitely like promote ideas of like aging, and also promote ideas of like a longevity economic. Yeah, that kind of ties back to your previous question. Like my research now at MIT is really focused on how can we shift the mindset from design for retirement to design for longevity, and how do you view like people at different ages? It's not different ages. It's not just numbers. It's different stages.
Yeah,
So that's kind of like really ties to the
I love
previous
that.
question. Yeah, like middle life and different stage of life, what people needs, right, and how we can grow. And nobody teaches. And I also feel like this is true. Like the ideas, the concept or the term of retirement, it's mock up, it's fake. Like
Yeah.
we live longer and we need a purpose and motivation to live. It's not just about finished and you're above like 65 in the US, 65, maybe in Asia longer. They retire in Europe, different ages, but you retire doesn't mean nobody celebrate your birthday, right? And how do you sustain that, right? And how do you make sure like you still need to think about what are the Tuesday morning you're going to lunch with? Something
Yeah.
like that. And I feel that's my focus
It's
currently.
really, really interesting. Sheng-Hung, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to come back on. I'd love to come back on and discuss that one in more.
Yeah.
You're one of these guys that you just start talking to and you're like, I like having my episodes wrapped up in about 40 minutes, but with you, it could be like 40 hours after you leave all these kind of like little kind of like, fish hooks, and I'm like, I don't know which one to nibble on next. So you're going to have to come back on and we'll talk about those different stages of life. Some of the listeners are like, yeah, Jerry, get him back on. This is a good conversation. So think of this as stage one, folks. Part one. We'll have Sheng-Hung on in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. We will put a link to your LinkedIn for people to send you positive emails. Don't harass them about any ideological suggestions about trying to get jobs. It's been really, really fantastic to speak to you, Sheng-Hung. And I end every episode thanking people for their vulnerability and their I guess their appetite for listening to me go left and right and weaving left and right with my questions. So thank you so much for giving me your time. I know you're a busy person.
Thank you. Likewise, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think it's really important, and also I never think about that perspective. And then for me, it's like, oh wow, that's something that is really critical, especially like now job market is crazy. A lot
Yeah.
of layoff, not just like design company in general. A lot of innovation project got cut because
Yeah.
economically, right? And the world situation is very sensitive now. Ethnicity, inclusiveness, right? And I feel like it's really important to talk about this. As designer, we have everyone has a lot of social responsibility for that, not just
Absolutely.
design. Yeah.
Absolutely. So listen, look, this is part one. Part two will be coming up in a couple of weeks, folks. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you're on Spotify, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, you will hear from us soon. Part two, and we'll learn more about Sheng-Hung's wonderful PhD's course at MIT. Thanks for your time, folks.
Thank you.